Welcome back to our series on decimals. Today we're going to really talk about how the decimal point represents the beginning of values that are pieces of one whole or amounts that are less than one. And the way that kids can remember the place value names is by seeing the number like this. So here we have 1. This is the sort of the bellwether. This is the ones place. The number 1 represents the ones place. Simple enough, right? Now, this is where it gets to be interesting, where you want to talk to your kids about the sense making. So here we have 1/10. Here is the decimal for 1/10. But the reason we call this a tenth, or well, the reason that we can call it a tenth and it looks reasonable is because if I write this, it looks like I've written the number 10, except for the decimal point in between. Now, if your kid remembers that the decimal point separates the whole numbers from the pieces that are less than a whole number, this represents one whole. This is 1/10. So this place value represents the tenths. Like if I wrote 1 and 1/10, it should make sense to your child that they're thinking about one whole and 1/10. So this can be read as 1 and 1/10. Now let's move down to the hundredths place. Remember, the hundredths place represents one piece out of 100 when it comes to the unit, the whole unit. So if I write that as 1, well, this represents still just one whole, but it looks a lot like 100. And your kid should make that connection when you write this. It looks like 101, and it kind of is, because it's one whole unit and 100th. So this reads as 1 and 100th. But if you think about it, it's also 101 hundredths, because 100 hundredths is one whole. So all of this should be discussed, because in a classroom of 25 kids, it's not easy to make sense of all this information as easily as it is when you do it at home, where it can be quiet and calm. Now finally, we have the thousandths place, which is a really tiny piece of one whole. So if I write this number, 1.000, it looks a lot like 1, but it also kind of resembles 1,000, because if this was a comma, it would be 1,000. Well, that's meaningful because when I write this represents 1 and 1,000th, which is a really, really small itty-bitty piece of one whole. So that's one way to think about this number, 1 and 1,000th. So I hope this helps. You need to repeat this repeatedly with your kids so they can really make sense of these place values, because tenths, hundredths, and thousandths are really focused on in 3rd grade and 4th grade, but the pattern just continues. So next time we will talk about different values than just ones and how to put together tenths and hundredths and thousandths so that it really makes sense. And we're going to keep on using these decimal squares. And remember, there's a link in the description below for how to get these printouts so you can have your kids color them in, because the more they color and have fun with it, the more they'll retain the information. Thanks. Please like and follow for more, and don't forget to subscribe. There'll be a lot more about decimals coming up. Thank you.